Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan Qasim. And if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Kady Sandel. I'm here in Austin, Texas, and I have a branding and design agency. Our focus is on packaging design for health and wellness product-based businesses.
Awesome. So I'm just curious about your background. How did you kind of get into branding and design in the first place?
Yeah, I love that question because I started when I was 15. I'm 34 now, so graphic design is the only thing I've ever done in my life. Back in Serbia, we don't have high schools like here in the States. It's more like specialized high schools. So basically, when you're 14, 15, you already have to know what your career is going to be. You can change it later, but not many people actually change it. And so that's when I went to a high school to become a graphic designer. And then right after that, I finished the Academy of Arts for graphic and web design, and then got a job in Las Vegas in one science and printing company, started freelancing, started growing, moved to Denver, moved to Austin, and, it just kind of like happened, right?
So I'm curious in terms of design, right? There's so many different types of design, so many different verticals. And I'm curious kind of like in terms of your ideal clients, certain verticals, what do you kind of focus on per se?
Yeah, so we've really focused on the health and wellness product-based businesses, and that's kind of like recently in the past 5 years or so. I think around COVID is when I realized that we do want to specialize in something, because prior to that, we worked with lawyers, with knife packaging, with, websites for hospitals. Like we were just all over the place. And me and my team were just not satisfied with where the agency is going to. So we decided to specialize in something. So we were really looking into our past clients and who we wanted to work with. And we realized that we worked with a lot of skincare brands, meal replacement shakes, supplements, and we were all really passionate about it. And we kind of just chose a niche and decided to really go all in the health and wellness product-based space.
So when it comes to this space, right, and especially specifically when it comes to design, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you're seeing people make when they're trying to go and do this on their own, or you're working with somebody who doesn't have the expertise that you have?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake is not knowing who their target audience is. So many brands are thinking that everyone and anyone who is into the product will buy their product. Well, they will not. You have to know exactly who the target audience is, but not just from the demographic perspective, like how old they are, where they live, and things like that, but more from the psychological perspective, why they would buy from you and not from someone else. Why you? What is that is going to attract them? And every time when I work on the brand strategy, even before we design a logo or packaging, select colors, we really dive deep into the target audience and what is going to attract them so that we can design something for them. Because at the end of the day, we're not even designing for the founder or the owner of the company, but for their customers. Because their end goal is not just to have pretty logo or packaging or a website, but to have something that is going to work and help them make more sales.
So if a brand is already out there on the market, right, and they want to engage you for like a redesign or rebrand, they might have some understanding of like who their customer is just based on past sales. How do you kind of work with somebody like in that?
Yeah, so it depends on their goal and if they're trying to get more into like retail or go online. But we really then dive deeper into who their past customers are, who is buying and why they are buying. Sometimes we would even, it's crazy, but sometimes we would even like stalk their customers or followers on Instagram or on LinkedIn, TikTok, and so on, so that we see what their day-to-day life looks like, what they're really passionate about, how they make purchasing decisions, and then redesigning based on that. So for example, just the other day, I was talking to a candle company, and they're very successful online. And that is because when you land on their website, they tell the story. So you read the story, you're really passionate about why they developed those candles. But as they're going into retail and trying to stand out on shelves, their labels don't tell the story. And you can't put the whole story on a label. So now we are trying to capture the vibe of their brand with their target audience so that the labels can tell the story without the words, without too many words, right? So again, it all goes down to who the target audience is.
So how do you kind of like relay that message? Because yeah, it is a big challenge, right? And I think, especially with labels, to the point you only have so much space on a website, especially if you're just doing DTC, you can really kind of lay it out there and handle the objections and have all these advertorials. Like it's super intuitive, but yeah, like kind of package it, kind of package in retail, you only have so much space. A customer is maybe thinking for 30 seconds to make a decision. So what do you
even
do?
Less.
Yeah, like even less than that. Yeah. So yeah, I guess like what are you doing with your clients to make sure that like that packaging is optimal for someone to pick it up from the shelves?
Yeah, so we usually focus on the brand attributes and how we want to position their brand. So it's not even just about standing out, because there are many brands that stand out, but do they really capture the story and do they really tell the story? Sometimes not, right? So the focus is going to be on brand attributes and figuring out what they want to stand for. So examples of brand attributes are luxury, affordable, more, like on the nature side, or more on the like modern side, like things like that. So we would have to figure out like 5 to 6 different brand attributes that we want to describe that brand. And then once we, for example, Liquid Death, like you see how they totally stand out, but they're like one-off example. And they really stand for that. Their brand attributes are so clear and they have like 2 to 3 and that's it. And I think that that's what every brand needs to have, because when you see a brand, you need to immediately feel the vibe of that brand. And that's what the brand attributes actually do. Like whether you're going to be attracted to a brand or not depends on if it resonates with you when you see it. And as you mentioned, like 30 seconds, I think that these days is maybe even 7. Especially when people are walking through, let's say, a grocery store or like any retail, shop, like you're walking and you have to make that decision like on the spot, like really quickly.
What about things like QR codes? I know that like some brands put that on their packaging. And I think to your point, I'm not sure if that works or not because it is only 7 seconds if that's the case. So yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, just like from that perspective.
Not many. Actually, we haven't had a client. So we worked with over 300 clients and we haven't had a client that wanted to include a QR code on their packaging. Sometimes they do want it on business cards when they go to networking events and things like that, but it's usually a QR code to their own personal LinkedIn profile, not so much to their website. Sometimes it is to their website as well, but never on the packaging itself. Because as you mentioned, like there's just not time. Like, can you even imagine yourself walking through an aisle and seeing a brand and then wanting to scan to learn more? No.
I've never done that. Yeah, I mean, it is something I've heard about, people doing.
Yes, I heard of it too. Yeah.
Some people, do that, but yeah, I mean, I'm usually trying to be as quick as possible. I'm not trying to sit there and spend 2 hours at the store.
Same. And, it depends on the business, on the product itself. If it's, let's say, food or beverage, like we just don't have time for it. Like, and nobody cares, right? Like, yes, I do want to know what I'm putting in myself, but I want to read it there on the spot. I don't want to put even more efforts into learning more about that brand. If it's online, then, you can scroll through a website, but you don't want to, especially like if you're a brand, you don't want to add extra steps between the purchase and your customer.
And then in terms of like some of the biggest trends that you're seeing, so obviously QR codes is not one of them, but what are some of the trends you're seeing when it comes to packaging design and what's actually working on shelves, now in 2025?
The simpler, the better. I think that these days people are really focused in minimalistic design, but also in a very bold minimalistic design. So what that means is gradients and colors that stand out, something that doesn't look too medical, especially because we're in the health and wellness space. But people don't want to look like a health product. They don't want to look like a medicine, even though they are in, supplements or healthy energy drinks and things like that. They don't want to look like a medicine. They'll want to look like a fun product that is going to stand out and that it's easy to read and get access to. So what I've seen is that a lot of brands actually don't want to have a lot of graphics and text. And it's like going back into that being simple. The same what we are seeing in the online space. For example, like YouTube Shorts and TikTok and Instagram Reels. It was all very popular for some time and we were all really into it. Now they're all expanding into like 2-minute videos, 3 minutes, 7. I think that era of being overwhelmed is over. So people now want something simple, longer, nicer. And it's the same with packaging design.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's interesting, right? Because certain categories, especially supplements, like some are, the packaging is very like minimalist, and I think you see that like on Amazon, a lot of these like Amazon brands, or even these kind of like off the shelf, like at Walmart, versus like some people go very deep into their design. So is there like a balance between that sort of style, like something super broad and generic versus like something super intuitive? Or yeah, I guess I'm curious kind of how you work with people when it comes to those types of products.
Yeah, of course. And again, it depends on their target audience. Like I already mentioned Liquid Death or Olipop, these brands they narrowed down their target audience. So they are not designing in that minimalistic space. So again, it really depends like who you're trying to attract and what those people are going to be attracted to. Most of the time based on our portfolio, because even though we're in the health and wellness space, we're also like more in the luxury kind of space. So most of our designs are kind of like minimalistic and they attract a certain type of customers. So I think that we are also attracting our ideal clients who are in the health and wellness space, but making more sales than just someone who's just starting. So I think that it really, again, depends on their target audience. And so when we are creating something, we're designing for our client's target audience. And sometimes that can be minimalistic. Sometimes it can be like all over the space. But yeah, again, it depends.
So in terms of your business, I mean, obviously now we're kind of like in the middle here of Q2 in 2025. So what are you kind of focused on for the rest of this year?
That's a good question. I'm focused on a lot of different things. So I have, besides running my branding and design agency that is very successful and we're getting clients like all the time, even just like last week, we closed like 3 clients. I have a bunch of sales calls next week and so on. What I'm really focused on is helping designers really find the right clients. So when I started, I was charging like $65 for a logo. And that was all before I was able to understand what brand strategy does, what packaging actually does for the clients. I would always talk to my clients in a way, do you like this red color? But it doesn't matter if they like it or not, So now I'm trying to educate designers how they can become specialists and what is that actually matters in the design space, how they can get clients, how they should price their work, how they can position themselves as branding and design experts, and so on. So that's kind of like my focus. And I'm building like my own personal brand on Instagram and YouTube channel, things like that. But overall, we are really excited about working with more design clients and just growing.
So in terms of like those designers, and obviously there's many people that want to get into design or just getting started in designs. If you can just kind of talk more about that, because I think that many people are going to be interested who are in that space or just getting in that space of like, kind of things to watch out for, be mindful of when they're working with clients for the first time.
Yeah, I will start with AI because a lot of designers are afraid that AI is going to replace them. And I think that AI will replace designers that don't use AI. What I mean by that is AI is a tool. We all use it. Even now when we work with clients, we use ChatGPT, we use Adobe Firefly, we use Midjourney, but more to generate ideas. The same how in the past designers would Google or go to Pinterest or so on. Now we use these AI tools to get to that level and even beyond that level. So I think for designers, it's very important to use AI and to be very good in using AI for their design work. Of course, you're not going to go to ChatGPT and be like, oh, create a logo for my client and then you charge for it. Like, no, you still have to think about it, right? But use it as a tool and really think about your input and output. So that's one thing. The other thing is that a lot of designers don't even realize the impact of their designs. So they charge based on hours or based on projects, kind of like, I'm going to provide this logo. It's going to take, I don't know, this many days. So it's 1,500. No, the value of that logo is way bigger because of that logo or packaging design or website design. You're helping your clients grow their business. And that value is way higher than just a few hours because the better we are as designers, the shorter amount of time is going to take us per project. So does that mean that because we're better, now we should charge less? No.
Exactly.
And I see this with designers all the time. Yes, they're trying to charge more, but there's always a cap when you talk about your design services rather than talking about the impact your designs have on clients' work.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's like, making sure that the clients understand, the value that you're providing 100%. Yeah. Cause I think it's like, exactly, when you're just focused on value or just cost and the service and the hours, those things kind of get thrown like out of the water as opposed to the impact that you're actually making. Because to your point, I mean, branding design makes a massive, massive difference when it
Yeah,
comes
and
to,
it's hard to measure. So I can understand designers because they're like, how do I know the impact of my packaging design or my logo design? Well, you can't really know immediately, but there is impact.
Exactly. So, I mean, I guess besides your pricing model that you've adjusted, if you could share with our audience, if you could go back in time, what is like the biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew before starting this business?
Probably knowing what brand strategy actually does, because as designers, we were always taught, oh, you need to design a logo, you need to design packaging, you need to design labels, business cards, but design it for who? How do I design it? And brand strategy is actually what sets the direction, the tone, because what's included in brand strategy is like mission, vision, core values, target audience, customer journey, positioning, like all the important stuff that are kind of like a base for a brand so that you can design based on that. So I wish that someone told me in the past that even if I don't do brand strategy myself, that I need to either collaborate with someone, hire someone, or ask my clients for the brand strategy document or a business plan so that I can design something for that business. Because in the past, I would provide 8 to 10 different logo designs for my clients to choose from. Then they would try to kind of like mix and match, and then we have something that's awful and it's not going to work for their business. And then in 2 years or less, they will have to rebrand and it's going to cost them even more money. And that is what I think I mentioned that to you via email. The cost of not hiring professionals is way higher than investing in a professional.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think if someone has a low budget and they want something quick and easy, they can go on 99 designs, but like that's just the quality. It's a different type of offer. But yeah, I mean, if somebody really wants to invest and are looking to scale and to put something super meaningful on a retail shelf, then yeah, it's super important. So I guess on that note,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
and I think that when I mention AI, I think that AI will replace those designers that are on 99 Designs, Fiverr, Upwork, because those designers for $5 or $20 or even like $200, they can't provide the same value as someone who's going to charge $20,000 for label or packaging or logo design. They're simply not going to put as much effort. They don't have the knowledge, because if they do, they wouldn't be on Fiverr and Upwork for $5, maybe 20. But I think that AI will replace those designers, because now everyone can go to Canva and design a logo. Maybe they
exactly.
cannot register. They cannot register legally. They're not supposed to. So basically, I think that AI will replace those designers.
For sure.
Clients need to find someone who is going to put more effort into their brand, because it's an investment. It's not an expense.
Exactly, 100% agreed. So if somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you and wanted to work with you, do you mind sharing your website, social media, I guess best ways to get in contact?
Yes. So I am on aventiveacademy.com, Aventive Studio as well. So Aventive Studio is my branding agency. Aventive Academy is for designers. But the easiest way to find me is on my Instagram at Kady Sandel.
Kady, thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.